The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the Arden Fair Mall parking lot into a mirror of neon and shadow. 12:45 a.m., the kind of hour when honest people were home sleeping and the dishonest were just getting started. Garrett "Ghost" Brennan sat astride his Harley Road King at the edge of the lot, engine idling, that familiar rumble vibrating through his bones like a second heartbeat. 62 years old, gray hair pulled back, leather jacket worn soft from 18 years of highway miles. His hands, scarred, steady, gripped the handlebars with the same calm he'd learned in the desert 35 years ago. 4 vehicles sat in a loose circle under the yellow glow of a failing streetlight. 4 shadows moved between them, their laughter cutting through the sound of rain on asphalt. Then he heard it, a voice, thin, frightened, familiar. "Please, I'm 81 years old. Please, just let me go." His mother. Garrett's jaw tightened. He rolled the throttle, and the Harley roared forward, headlights slicing through the darkness like a blade. The 4 shadows turned, young men, early 20s, phones out, cameras recording. One of them was pushing a wheelchair, empty now, lying on its side in a puddle. The woman who should have been in it was on the ground, hands bound, trying to sit up. Evelyn Brennan, 81 years old, his mother. The tallest of the 4 stepped forward, grinning. Designer jacket, expensive sneakers, phone held high. Well, the old man actually showed up. Garrett killed the engine. Silence, except for the rain. He swung his leg over the bike, boots hitting the wet pavement with a sound like a judge's gavel. "Bryce Callahan," Garrett said. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that made smart men nervous. Bryce's grin widened. "You remember my name. I'm flattered." Behind Bryce, one of his friends, skinny kid with a rat face, kicked at the wheelchair. It skidded across the pavement with a metallic screech. "Die faster, old Crip," the kid laughed. Garrett took 1 step forward. Bryce raised a hand. Don't do anything stupid, old man. You're outnumbered, outmatched, and completely," he paused for effect, "out of your depth." Garrett's eyes never left Bryce's face, but his peripheral vision, honed by years of staying alive in places where hesitation meant death, tracked every movement. 4 hostiles, 3 more in the vehicles, possible weapons, exit routes, cover positions, old habits. "Let her go," Garrett said. Bryce laughed. "Or what? You'll bore me to death with stories about the good old days?" Sunday morning, 6:15 a.m. The kind of California sunrise that painted the Sacramento sky in shades of amber and rose. The kind that promised a good day if you were the sort to believe in promises. Garrett's garage sat at the end of Folsom Boulevard, a squat building with peeling paint and a sign that read, "Brennan's Custom Work," in letters that hadn't been updated since 2010. Inside, the air smelled of motor oil, leather, and coffee that had been brewing since 5 a.m. The Harley sat on its stand in the center of the workspace, chrome gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Garrett moved around it with the careful attention of a man performing a ritual. Check the oil. Inspect the brake lines. Run a clean cloth over the fuel tank, polishing away imaginary dust. This was meditation. This was prayer. He'd owned this bike for 21 years, but it used in 2005, 6 months after he left the Marines for good. 3 years before he'd stitched the Hells Angels patch onto his back. The Road King had been with him through 3 relationships, 2 cross-country rides, and 1 night in Bakersfield he still didn't like to think about. It was more reliable than most people he'd known. Garrett straightened, wiping his hands on a shop rag. His eyes drifted to the workbench against the far wall, to a small steel box sitting among the wrenches and spare parts. He knew what was inside without opening it. Hell, he'd memorized the contents years ago. But every Sunday morning, before he picked up his mother for church, he opened it anyway. The lid creaked. Inside, a Bronze Star medal dulled with age. A photograph, edges soft with handling. Garrett at 27, full uniform, standing next to a younger man with a scared smile. Private Wyatt Torres, 19 years old, dead 35 years. And beneath the photo, a folded letter. Garrett didn't need to read it. He knew every word. Son, if there comes a day I'm not here, remember this. A man is only as good as his word. The law tells us what we can do. Honor tells us what we must do. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not. I trust you'll know the difference when it matters. Your father, William Brennan. Written in 2008. William had died in 2009, lungs finally giving out after 60 years of Marlboros and 40 years of factory air. Garrett kept the letter close. Some men carried photos of their children. Garrett carried his father's final lesson. He closed the box, checked his watch. 6:45. Time to pick up his mother. Ocean View Senior Living sat on a low hill overlooking the American River, a sprawling complex of cream-colored buildings and carefully maintained gardens. It wasn't the cheapest place in Sacramento, but it wasn't the most expensive either. Garrett paid the monthly fees without complaint. His mother had raised him alone after his father's accident in '72, worked 2 jobs to keep him fed and clothed, never once asked for anything back. This was the least he could do. He found Evelyn in her room, already dressed for church. Navy blue dress, pearl earrings that had belonged to her own mother. Hair done up the way she'd worn it for 50 years, silver and perfect. Right on time, she said, smiling, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Garrett noticed. He always noticed. You sleep okay, Ma? Fine, fine. She waved a hand, turning to collect her purse, but her movements were stiff, careful, like someone trying not to show pain. Garrett's eyes narrowed. Ma. I said I'm fine, Garrett. He stepped closer. Gently, he took her wrist. She tried to pull away, but he was patient. He turned her hand over. Bruises, 4 of them, purple, yellow, finger marks. Ma, who did this? Evelyn pulled her hand back, tugging her sleeve down. It's nothing. I bumped into a door. Doors don't leave fingerprints. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Garrett, please, it's Sunday. Let's just go to church. Every instinct he had, every lesson learned in 35 years of watching for threats, screamed at him to push, to demand answers. But this was his mother, and she was asking him to let it go. For now. All right, he said quietly. Let's go. First Baptist Church sat on J Street, red brick and white steeple, the kind of building that had stood in downtown Sacramento since before Garrett was born. They'd been attending together every Sunday since 2009, since the week after his father's funeral. 17 years. Never missed once. Garrett pushed Evelyn's wheelchair up the ramp. She didn't need it all the time, could walk short distances with a cane, but the accident in 2021 had left her hip weak. The chair was easier, safer. They sat in their usual pew, 3rd row from the back on the left. Evelyn sang the hymns from memory. Garrett didn't sing, never had. But he stood when you were supposed to stand, sat when you were supposed to sit, bowed his head when Pastor Williams said to pray. He wasn't sure what he believed anymore. Used to be clear when he was young. Then Iraq happened. Then Wyatt happened. Now at 62, Garrett figured if there was a God, he had bigger concerns than one tired biker in Sacramento. But his mother believed, and that was enough. After the service, they drove to Jay's Diner on Stockton Boulevard. Same booth every week. Same waitress, Lorraine, 50-something, bleached blonde hair and a smile that had seen too many late shifts, but never quite gave up. Morning, you two, Lorraine said, setting down coffee without asking. Usual? Evelyn nodded. Please. Garrett watched his mother. She was looking out the window, hands wrapped around her coffee cup like she needed the warmth. Her shoulders were tight, her breathing shallow. Something was wrong. He waited until Lorraine brought their food, eggs and toast for Evelyn, steak and hash browns for Garrett, then leaned forward. Ma, talk to me. Evelyn stared at her plate. There's nothing to talk about. The bruises say different. She didn't answer. Garrett sat back, changed tactics. You remember what Dad used to say? About keeping things locked up inside? A faint smile. He said it was like swallowing poison and hoping the other person died. Yeah, so stop swallowing poison and talk to me. Evelyn set down her fork. Her hands were shaking. Just slightly, but Garrett saw it. There's been some trouble at the mall. What kind of trouble? Some young men. They've been bothering some of us, the older residents. Garrett's voice went flat. Bothering how? Nothing serious, just pranks. You know how young people are these days. Ma, she finally looked at him. And in her eyes, those same eyes that had stared down bill collectors and school principals and the Marine recruiter who tried to talk her son out of enlisting in '82, Garrett saw something he'd never seen before. Fear. They pushed Vernon last week, she said quietly. Vernon Hayes, you remember him? '82, fought in Korea. They knocked him down, broke his dentures, filmed the whole thing, laughing. Garrett's jaw clenched. You report it? Vernon did. Police came, took a statement, said there wasn't enough evidence. And the bruises on your wrist? Evelyn looked away. Last Tuesday, I was coming out of Macy's. They were there. 4 of them. One of them, the leader, I think. He grabbed my wheelchair, pushed it, fast. I told him to stop and he just laughed. Said, she swallowed hard. He said, move faster, old Crip. You're blocking my shot. The coffee cup in Garrett's hand cracked. Not broke, just cracked. A thin line down the ceramic. He set it down carefully, forced his breathing to stay even. Did you see their faces? Yes. Would you recognize them? Garrett, please, don't. Would you recognize them, Ma? She nodded, small, frightened. Garrett stood, dropped 2 20s on the table, more than enough for the meal. Stay here, I'll be right back. He walked to the counter where Lorraine was refilling napkin dispensers. She looked up, saw his face, and her smile faded. Garrett, you okay? Need to ask you something, he said quietly. You know anything about kids harassing seniors around Arden Fair? Lorraine glanced toward the booth where Evelyn sat, then back to Garrett. She set down the napkins. Yeah, she said. I know. My aunt lives at Ocean View, same as your ma. She told me about it last month. Says there's a group of them. 4, maybe 5. Young guys, early 20s. They film themselves messing with old people. Push wheelchairs, grab canes, take pictures, post it all online for likes or whatever the hell. You know who they are? Not names, but I've seen them. They come in here sometimes after, laughing about it, acting like it's the funniest thing in the world. Her face hardened. I wanted to throw them out, but the manager said we can't discriminate. Can you believe that? Can't discriminate against people terrorizing grandmothers. They've been in recently? 2 days ago, Wednesday night. Garrett pulled out his phone. You see them again, you call me, right away. Lorraine took the phone, entered her number, handed it back. You gonna do something about this? I'm gonna talk to them. Garrett, she lowered her voice. These aren't good kids having fun. They're mean. And one of them, the leader, his daddy's got money, power. Heard them bragging about it. Said they could do whatever they wanted because nobody could touch them. We'll see about that. He walked back to the booth. Evelyn looked up, searching his face. What are you going to do? What I should have done the day you got those bruises, Garrett said. I'm going to find them, and I'm going to explain very clearly why they need to stop. Garrett, Ma, he sat down across from her, took her hands gently. Dad made me promise something before he died. You remember? She nodded. Her eyes were wet. He made me promise I'd always protect you, that I'd always stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, that I'd be the kind of man he raised me to be. Garrett squeezed her hand softly. I'm keeping that promise. By Monday afternoon, Garrett had a name. Knox. 26, thin as a rail, covered in tattoos that look like they'd been done in someone's basement, sat in Garrett's garage with a laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Knox was new to the Sacramento Hells Angels chapter, brought in 6 months ago from Fresno. The kid had a gift for computers, the kind of gift that made people uncomfortable when they thought too hard about it. Found them, Knox said, turning the laptop around. The screen showed a TikTok account at Target Practice _squad, 47,000 followers. The most recent video had been posted 3 days ago. Garrett watched it. Watched Vernon Hayes, 82 years old, decorated veteran of the Korean War, get shoved to the ground by a kid in a designer jacket. Watch the kid laugh. Watch the camera zoom in on Vernon's face, on his broken dentures, on the blood on his lip. The video had 2.3 million views. The comments were worse. Garrett's hands curled into fists. "Keep going," he said. Knox scrolled. More videos. More victims. Elderly men and women pushed, mocked, filmed. One showed someone kicking a walker out from under an old woman. Another showed a group surrounding a man in a wheelchair, blocking his path, laughing as he tried to get around them. "Jesus Christ," Knox muttered. Garrett stared at the screen. "Can you identify them?" "Already did." Knox pulled up a separate tab. 4 profiles. 4 faces. Bryce Callahan, 23, leader of this little crew. This one's Trent Fisher, 21, camera guy. Then you got Jackson Reed, 19, and Darius Page, 25, the muscle. Home addresses? Yeah, but there's something you need to know. Knox looked up. Bryce Callahan. His father is Wade Callahan. The name meant nothing to Garrett. Who? Sacramento City Council, District 4. Been there 10 years. And get this, he's running for state senate. Big campaign. Billboards all over town. Tough on crime. Safe communities. Real law and order type. His son's terrorizing senior citizens. Yeah, ironic, right? Garrett stared at Bryce's photo. Clean cut. Good looking. The kind of face that smiled for cameras and shook hands at fundraisers. "You want me to dig deeper?" Knox asked. "No." Garrett closed the laptop. "I want you to find out where he'll be tonight." Arden Fair Mall, 7:30 p.m. The parking lot was half full, Monday night shoppers coming and going under the yellow glow of streetlights. Garrett sat on his Harley in the shadow of a loading dock, engine off, watching. He'd been there an hour when they showed up. 4 of them. Bryce's Mercedes, Trent's Audi, Jackson and Darius in a lifted pickup. They parked near the Macy's entrance, engines still running, music thumping. Garrett waited. 20 minutes later, an elderly couple came out of the store. The woman was using a walker. The man had his arm around her, helping her along. Bryce and his crew noticed. They got out of their vehicles. Phones came up. They spread out, casual, like they were just hanging around. But Garrett saw the pattern. Predators circling prey. He started his bike. The rumble of the Harley cut through the night like thunder. Bryce and his friends turned, startled. Garrett rode slowly across the parking lot, pulled up 20 feet away, killed the engine. He sat there for a moment, just looking at them. 4 young men, healthy, strong, every advantage in the world, picking on people who couldn't fight back. Garrett swung off the bike. He didn't hurry, didn't rush, just walked toward them with the same steady pace he'd used crossing a street. Bryce recovered first, put on a smile. "Can we help you, old-timer?" Garrett stopped 10 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to react if they moved wrong. "Bryce Callahan," he said. The smile faltered. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know you." Garrett's voice was flat, calm, the kind of calm that came from discipline, not peace. "I know what you've been doing, to my mother, to Vernon Hayes, to all of them." Bryce's smile came back, wider now, nastier. "Your mother? Which old Crip was that? We've pranked so many I can't keep track." Behind Bryce, Trent laughed, started recording with his phone. "This is going to be great content," Trent said. Garrett didn't look at him, kept his eyes on Bryce. "I'm going to say this once, only once. Stop." "Or what?" Bryce took a step forward. "What are you going to do, old man? Hit me? That's assault. My father's a city councilman. I could have you arrested before you make it home." "I don't want to hit you," Garrett said quietly. "I want you to think about what you're doing, about who you're hurting, and about the fact that someday you're going to be old too. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember this moment." Bryce stared at him, then burst out laughing. "Oh my God, you're serious. You actually think—" He turned to his friends. "You guys hearing this? Grandpa here thinks I'm going to have some kind of epiphany." Darius stepped forward. He was bigger than Garrett, younger, gym muscles pressing against his tight shirt. He put a hand on Garrett's chest, shoved him back a step. "Walk away, old man, before you get hurt." Garrett looked down at the hand on his chest, looked back up at Darius. His face showed nothing. No anger, no fear, nothing. "Take your hand off me." Darius laughed, shoved him again, harder. Garrett could have broken his wrist, could have dropped him right there. 35 years ago in Iraq, he'd put down men twice this kid's size. The training never really left you. But this wasn't Iraq. This wasn't war. This was Sacramento. Monday night. Witnesses everywhere. And he'd promised his father he'd be the kind of man worth respecting. So Garrett took one breath. Let it out slow. Step back. "I warned you," he said. "That's all I came to do." He turned, walked back to his bike. Behind him, Bryce called out, "Yeah, run away, old man. Go back to your nursing home." Trent was still filming, laughing. "This is gold, absolutely gold." Garrett swung onto his Harley, started the engine. The rumble was loud, final. He rode out of the parking lot without looking back. But if any of them had been paying attention, really paying attention, they might have noticed something. Garrett wasn't angry. He was calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. Midnight, Garrett's garage. The coffee pot had been on for 6 hours. He sat at his workbench, the small steel box open in front of him. He'd already looked at the Bronze Star, already traced the edges of Wyatt's photo. Now he held his father's letter. "A man is only as good as his word. The law tells us what we can do. Honor tells us what we must do. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not." Garrett folded the letter carefully, put it back in the box, closed the lid. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. 3 rings. A voice answered, rough with sleep and cigarettes. "This better be good, Ghost." Reaper. Real name, Thomas McCall. 58 years old. President of the Sacramento Hells Angels Charter. Garrett had known him for 18 years, rode with him for 18 years, trusted him with his life. "Need a favor," Garrett said. "Name it." "Information on Wade Callahan." Silence on the other end. Then, "The councilman?" "Yeah." "This about his kid? You know about that?" "Ghost, everyone knows. Punk's been pulling this shit for months. Cops won't touch him because of Daddy, and Daddy won't control him because—" Reaper paused. "Because some men think power means never having to say no to your children. His son assaulted my mother." Another pause, longer this time. When Reaper spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, colder. "When do you need this information?" "Soon as possible." "You got it. And Ghost?" "Yeah?" "You need more than information. You let me know. Brotherhood means something. Remember that." "I remember." Garrett hung up, sat in the quiet garage, listening to the old buildings settle around him. On the wall above his workbench hung a framed photograph, Garrett and his father, taken in 1981. Garrett was 17, skinny, still had all his hair. His father, 56 then, weathered from factory work and war, had his arm around Garrett's shoulders. Both of them were smiling. Garrett looked at that photo for a long time. Then he stood up, walked to the Harley, and began to check the bike over. Oil, brakes, tire pressure, chain tension. Everything had to be perfect because he had a feeling, the kind of feeling you got from years of staying alive when the odds said you shouldn't, that he was going to need this bike running smooth. Very soon. The screen faded to black. White text appeared, 36 hours until the confrontation. And in the darkness of the garage, the only sound was the tick, tick, tick of cooling metal, and the slow, steady breathing of a man who'd made a promise he intended to keep. Tuesday morning broke cold and gray over Sacramento, the kind of morning that felt like a warning. Garrett stood in the parking lot of the Sacramento Police Department's Central Station, helmet under his arm, watching officers come and go through the glass doors. He'd been standing there for 10 minutes, working through what he was going to say. Finally, he went inside. The desk sergeant, young woman, couldn't be more than 25, looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" "Need to speak with Captain Rodriguez." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she'll want to hear what I have to say." The sergeant studied him, the leather jacket, the long gray hair, the Hells Angels insignia on his back. "Your name?" "Garrett Brennan." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, hung up. "She'll see you, 3rd floor, room 312. Captain Ellen Rodriguez had been with Sacramento PD for 32 years. Started as a beat cop in 1994, worked her way up through narcotics, homicide, finally made captain in 2019. She was 55 years old, carried herself like someone who'd seen every variation of human stupidity and wasn't impressed by any of it. She sat behind a desk covered in files and coffee cups, looking at Garrett like she was trying to decide if he was about to make her day better or worse. "Mr. Brennan, what can I do for you?" Garrett sat down without being asked. "You know about the assaults at Arden Fair Mall?" "I know about alleged harassment incidents involving senior citizens, yes." "Alleged." Garrett's voice stayed flat. "My mother has bruises. Vernon Hayes has broken teeth. That's not alleged. That's evidence." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Brennan, I understand you're upset, but we've investigated. The victims can't identify their attackers with certainty. There's no video evidence from the mall cameras, and the social media videos don't show clear faces or license plates." "So you know about the videos?" "Of course we know about the videos. We've been monitoring that account for 6 weeks. And there's nothing actionable. Believe me, I'd love to bring these kids in, but without concrete evidence linking them to specific crimes, my hands are tied." Garrett leaned forward. "Bryce Callahan, Trent Fisher, Jackson Reed, Darius Page, those are your attackers." Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "And you know this how? Does it matter?" "It matters if you obtain that information illegally." "I didn't break any laws." "Mr. Brennan," Rodriguez folded her hands on the desk, "I'm going to be straight with you. Bryce Callahan's father is Wade Callahan, city councilman, running for state senate. He has relationships with the mayor, the chief of police, and half the judges in Sacramento County. If I bring his son in without ironclad evidence, my career is over. And more importantly, the case gets thrown out, and those kids walk free. So you're saying politics matters more than justice?" "I'm saying I need evidence that will stand up in court. Not rumors, not social media. Hard evidence." She paused. "And I'm also saying that if you take matters into your own hands, I'll have to arrest you, no matter how much I might sympathize with your position." Garrett stood. "Appreciate your honesty, Captain." "Mr. Brennan," Rodriguez's voice stopped him at the door. "I meant what I said. Don't do anything stupid. Let us do our job." "How long?" "What? How long do my mother and the others have to wait? A week? A month? Until one of them ends up in the hospital? Or worse?" Rodriguez had no answer to that. Garrett walked out. In the hallway, he pulled out his phone, typed a message to Reaper. Need that information now. The response came back in 30 seconds. Come to the clubhouse, we found something. The Hells Angels Sacramento clubhouse sat on an industrial road near the rail yards, a low-slung building with barred windows and motorcycles lined up out front like soldiers at attention. Garrett had been coming here for 18 years. It was the closest thing he had to a second home. Reaper met him at the door. Behind him, Knox sat at a table covered in laptops and papers, looking like he hadn't slept. "Tell him," Reaper said. Knox turned his laptop around. Wade Callahan, 55, Sacramento City Council since 2016. Before that, he was a real estate developer. Made his money buying up properties during the 2008 crash, flipping them. Smart, ruthless, connected. "I know all this," Garrett said. "Yeah, but you don't know this." Knox pulled up a new window. "Callahan's running for state senate. His entire platform is law and order, tough on crime, protecting communities. He's got endorsements from the police union, the sheriff's association, every law enforcement group in Northern California. And his son's a criminal." "Exactly. But here's the thing. I dug into Bryce's background. Kid's got a juvenile record. Sealed, of course, but I found references to it in some old news articles. Assault charges, vandalism. Got off with community service and counseling thanks to Daddy's lawyers. So this isn't new behavior. Not even close. And there's more." Knox clicked to another file. 3 months ago, someone filed a restraining order against Bryce. Woman named Ashley Morrison, 24 years old. The filing was withdrawn 2 weeks later. Paid off? Probably. But get this, I tracked down Ashley's Instagram. She's got photos from last year. Her and Bryce together. They were dating. Then suddenly, no more photos. And a restraining order. Garrett felt something cold settle in his gut. "You got an address for her?" "Already sent it to your phone." Reaper stepped forward. "Ghost, before you go down this road, you need to know what you're getting into. Wade Callahan isn't just connected. He's dangerous. And not in the way we're dangerous. We follow a code. He doesn't. He'll come at you with lawyers, cops, politicians. He'll bury you in paperwork and court dates and legal fees until you're broke or broken." "I'm already in the road," Garrett said. "Question is whether you're coming with me." Reaper smiled, slow and cold. "Brother, we've been in the road since you called. Just wanted to make sure you knew the stakes." "I know the stakes." "Then let's go to work." Ashley Morrison lived in a small apartment complex off Fruit Ridge Road, second floor, paint peeling on the doorframe. Garrett knocked, waited. The door opened 2 inches. A chain lock stretched tight. A young woman's face appeared in the gap, blonde hair pulled back, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not interested." "I'm not selling anything, Miss Morrison. My name is Garrett Brennan. I need to talk to you about Bryce Callahan." The name hit her like a punch. She tried to close the door, but Garrett put his hand on it. Gently. "Please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." "I don't have anything to say about Bryce." "Your restraining order says different." "That was a mistake, a misunderstanding." "Miss Morrison," Garrett kept his voice low, calm. "My mother is 81 years old. Bryce and his friends put their hands on her, hurt her, and they're going to keep hurting people unless someone stops them. I think you know what kind of person he is. I think that's why you tried to get that restraining order." Ashley stared at him through the gap in the door. Her eyes were wet. "He'll destroy me if I talk to you." "He's already destroyed part of you. I can see it." She was quiet for a long moment. Then the chain rattled. The door opened. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. Sparse furniture, no decorations. Like someone who was ready to pack up and leave at any moment. Ashley sat on the edge of the couch, didn't offer Garrett a seat. He stood. "How'd you find me?" she asked. "Does it matter?" "I guess not." She pulled her knees up to her chest, made herself small. "What do you want to know?" "The truth." "The truth," she laughed, bitter. "The truth is, Bryce Callahan is a monster, and his father made him that way." Tell me. And she did. They'd met 2 years ago. Ashley was working as a hostess at a restaurant downtown. Bryce came in with friends, started flirting. He was charming, good-looking, said all the right things. They dated for 6 months. Then the mask came off. It started small, criticizing her clothes, her friends, her job. Then it got worse, grabbing her arm too hard, pushing her, screaming in her face over nothing. One night she tried to leave. He locked the door, wouldn't let her go until she apologized for embarrassing him. She went to the police, filed for a restraining order. 24 hours later, Wade Callahan showed up at her apartment with a lawyer and an offer. Drop the restraining order, sign an NDA, accept $50,000, walk away, or Wade would destroy her job, her reputation, her family. He had the resources, the connections. He'd done it before. Ashley took the money, signed the papers, moved to this apartment and tried to forget. But you can't forget, can you? Garrett said quietly. Ashley shook her head, tears running down her face now. I see him sometimes, on TV, his father talking about making communities safe, about protecting families, and I want to scream. I want to tell everyone what his son is, what he lets his son do, but I can't, because I signed that paper, and because, she looked up at Garrett, because I'm scared. Garrett knelt down, looked her in the eye. I'm going to stop him, he said, not for revenge, not for payback, but because someone has to. And I'm asking you, when the time comes, when this goes public, will you tell your story? I can't. The NDAs can't cover up crimes, and what Bryce did to you was a crime. What Wade did was conspiracy to obstruct justice. Those papers don't mean anything if you're willing to fight. Ashley looked at him, really looked, at the gray hair, the weathered face, the calm, steady eyes of a man who'd seen worse than Bryce Callahan and survived. You really think you can stop them? I know I can. Question is whether you're ready to help. She was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded, just once. When you're ready, she said, when the time comes, I'll tell my story. Garrett stood. That's all I needed to hear. That evening, Garrett received a text from his mother. Need to talk. Important. Come to Ocean View when you can. He was there in 20 minutes. Evelyn wasn't in her room. The nurse at the front desk directed him to the community lounge on the second floor. When Garrett walked in, he stopped. 7 people sat in a rough circle. His mother, Vernon Hayes, and 5 others, elderly men and women, all with the same look in their eyes. Fear mixed with something else. Anger. Vernon stood when he saw Garrett, 82 years old, 5'6", walked with a cane, but when he extended his hand, his grip was strong. Mr. Brennan, your mother's told us about you. Thank you for coming. What's this about? This, Evelyn said, gesturing to the group, is everyone from Ocean View who's been attacked by those boys. Garrett looked around the circle, saw the bruises, the cuts, the broken glasses held together with tape, the fear that shouldn't exist in a place meant to be safe. This is Ida Murphy, Evelyn continued. They stole her late husband's watch last month. And Eugene Sullivan, Gene, they pushed him down the stairs at the mall, broke his hip. Gene nodded, quiet, dignified. Lucille Baker, Howard Grant, Nadine Foster. Each name, each face, each story. Vernon spoke up. We want to help, all of us. We're tired of being scared, tired of hiding. Your mother says you're trying to do something about this. We want to be part of it. Garrett felt something shift in his chest. These people, they'd lived through wars and recessions and losses he couldn't imagine. They'd raised families and built careers and served their country. And now they were sitting in a senior living facility, scared of children. It wasn't right. What I'm planning, Garrett said slowly, might not work, and it might put you in danger. Wade Callahan has power, resources. He could retaliate. Mr. Brennan, Ida spoke up. 76 years old, white hair, kind eyes. I'm 76 years old. I buried my husband 5 years ago. I have 2 children who visit once a month, if I'm lucky. The watch those boys stole was the only thing I had left of George. Do you know what that means? To have nothing left of someone you loved for 53 years? Garrett didn't answer. It means I have nothing left to lose, Ida said. None of us do. So we're not scared of Wade Callahan. We're scared of dying without fighting back. The room was silent. Then Garrett nodded. All right, here's what we do. He laid out the plan. Simple, direct. They would document everything, keep journals of every encounter, every threat, every assault. They would wear small cameras, Knox could get them, hidden in glasses or jewelry. They would become witnesses to their own persecution. And when they had enough evidence, they would take it public. Not to the police, not yet. To the media, to the court of public opinion. Wade Callahan was running on a platform of protecting communities. Let the community see what his son was really doing. It's going to take time, Garrett said. Weeks, maybe. And you have to be careful. Don't confront them. Don't give them any reason to escalate. How long? Vernon asked. As long as it takes to do this right. But time, as it turned out, was something they didn't have. Wednesday afternoon, Garrett was in his garage working on a carburetor when his phone rang. Knox, voice tight. Ghost, we got a problem. Talk to me. Someone's been following you. 2 vehicles, black SUVs, government plates. They've been rotating surveillance for the past 36 hours. Garrett set down his tools. You sure? I'm sure, and that's not all. Your phone's been compromised. They're listening. How do you know? Because I've been monitoring cellular traffic in your area, and there's a persistent spike in data whenever you make a call. Someone's running a tap. Garrett walked to the window, looked out at the street. Nothing obvious. But that was the point. Wade Callahan's work? Has to be. You rattled his cage. Now he's watching. Let him watch. Ghost, you don't understand. If they're tapping your phone, they know you talked to Ashley Morrison. They know you're building a case. They're going to move to shut you down. Let them try. Ghost. Knox, I appreciate the warning, but I'm not backing down. Tell Reaper, tell the others, we proceed as planned. He hung up, stared out the window at the empty street. 35 years ago, he'd made a choice in the desert, and it had haunted him ever since. Time to face it. Garrett walked to his workbench, opened the small steel box. But this time, instead of taking out his father's letter, he pulled out the photograph. Wyatt Torres, 19 years old, baby face, scared eyes trying to look brave. Garrett closed his eyes. Let the memory come. Iraq, February 1991, Operation Desert Storm. The convoy had been moving through the dark for 3 hours. 12 vehicles, 48 men. Their mission, extract a family of Iraqi translators who'd been marked for execution by Saddam's Republican Guard. Garrett was 27, Staff Sergeant, 1st Cavalry Division. He'd been in country for 8 months, had seen action, had lost men. But nothing prepared you for the reality of war. The sand, the heat, the constant weight of knowing that any second could be your last. Private Wyatt Torres sat in the Humvee behind him. The kid had arrived in country 6 weeks ago, fresh out of basic, 18 years old when he enlisted, turned 19 3 days before deployment. Garrett had promised Wyatt's mother he'd bring the boy home, written her a letter, said all the things you're supposed to say. Your son is in good hands. We take care of our own. He'll be fine. The extraction went smooth. Too smooth. They found the translator's family, mother, father, 3 children, hiding in a bombed-out school. Got them loaded into the vehicles, started the drive back to base. That's when the ambush hit. RPGs, small arms fire, coming from buildings on both sides of the street. The convoy scattered. Drivers trying to find cover. Gunners returning fire. Garrett's vehicle took a hit. RPG glanced off the armor, didn't penetrate, but the explosion flipped them. Garrett woke up upside down, ears ringing, taste of blood in his mouth. He crawled out, checked his men. 2 wounded but mobile, 1 unconscious, and then he saw Wyatt's vehicle. It had taken a direct hit. On fire. Men scrambling out, someone screaming. Garrett ran. Found Wyatt on the ground 20 feet from the burning Humvee. The kid's legs were shredded, arterial bleeding, too much blood. Garrett dropped beside him, started applying pressure, called for a medic, but the radio was chaos. Everyone screaming. Explosions. Gunfire. Wyatt grabbed Garrett's arm. His grip was weak, fading. Sarge, I can't feel my legs. You're gonna be fine, Torres. Medic's coming. You're gonna be fine. Tell my mama. Wyatt coughed, blood on his lips. Tell her I tried to be brave. You are brave. You're the bravest damn soldier I know. But Wyatt wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were going distant, fixed on something Garrett couldn't see. And that's when Garrett had to make the choice. The translator's family was trapped in a disabled vehicle 50 yards away. Gunfire tearing it apart, the children screaming. They had maybe 2 minutes before the shooters got the angle to finish them. Garrett had 8 men still mobile, 3 wounded, and Wyatt bleeding out. If he stayed with Wyatt, called in the medevac, waited for extraction, the translator's family would die, and probably half his men too. The ambush was coordinated, professional. They were pinned. If he moved now, fast, aggressive, punched through the ambush, and got everyone to the rally point 2 clicks south, they might all make it. Except Wyatt. Wyatt needed a hospital, needed it now. Moving him would kill him. But staying meant everyone died. Garrett looked at the kid, at the life draining out of him, at the promise he'd made to a mother halfway around the world. Then he looked at the translator's family, at the 3 children huddled in the vehicle, at his men waiting for orders. Mount up, Garrett shouted. We're moving, now. Sarge, what about Torres? Someone yelled. We're moving, that's an order. They moved. Garrett carried Wyatt to a vehicle, laid him in the back as gently as he could. The kid was barely conscious, kept trying to say something. Mama, tell Mama. I'll tell her, Garrett said. I swear to God I'll tell her. They punched through the ambush, lost 1 more man, but they made it to the rally point. Medevac choppers came 20 minutes later, 20 minutes too late for Wyatt Torres. The kid died in Garrett's arms. Never regained consciousness, never knew they'd made it out, never knew his sacrifice had saved 8 lives. Garrett kept his word, wrote to Mrs. Adelaide Torres, attended the funeral, looked that woman in the eye and told her that her son died a hero. But heroes don't ease a mother's grief, and promises don't bring back the dead. Garrett had made the right tactical choice, the command choice. Save the many, that's what they taught you. That's what the mission required. But it didn't feel right. It never felt right. For 35 years, Garrett carried that choice, carried Wyatt's face, carried the weight of knowing he'd chosen duty over humanity, strategy over compassion. He'd kept his word to do his job, but he'd broken his word to Mrs. Torres. And that was the difference his father had written about, the difference between what the law allows and what honor demands. Garrett opened his eyes, looked at the photograph one more time. I couldn't save you, Wyatt, he said quietly to the empty garage, but I'll be damned if I let anyone else die on my watch. Not while I can still stand, not while I can still fight. He put the photo back in the box, closed the lid. Tomorrow he'd face whatever Wade Callahan threw at him. Tonight, he needed to prepare. Thursday evening, Garrett took his mother to dinner. Not Jay's Diner this time, somewhere nicer. Frank Fats, the old steakhouse on L Street. They sat in a booth in the back, ordered wine, talked about nothing important. The weather, the news, Evelyn's book club. But halfway through the meal, Evelyn set down her fork. Garrett, I'm scared. He looked up. Not for me, she continued. For you. I know what you're doing, and I know why. But I also know Wade Callahan. He's not a good man, and he'll hurt you if you threaten his son. Ma, let me finish. Her voice was firm, the same voice she'd used when he was 17 and wanted to enlist. I raised you to be strong, to stand up for what's right, and I'm proud of you. But I'm also your mother, and I'm allowed to be scared. Garrett reached across the table, took her hand. You remember what you told me before I left for basic training? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. You said a man who stands by and does nothing is just as guilty as the man who does wrong. You said that's what separates people worth knowing from people worth avoiding. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm doing what you raised me to do, Ma. I can't stop now. I know you can't. She wiped her eyes. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise. They finished dinner. Garrett drove her back to Ocean View, walked her to her room, kissed her forehead. I love you, Ma. I love you too, son. He was halfway to his bike when his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Yeah. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a young voice, scared. Mr. Brennan, this is Ryan Kowalski. You don't know me, but I'm friends with Bryce Callahan. Was friends. I don't know anymore. Garrett stopped walking. I'm listening. I need to tell you something. About tomorrow. They're planning something. Bryce and his dad. I heard them talking. What are they planning? I don't know exactly, but Mr. Callahan was angry, really angry. He said you were becoming a problem, that he needed to send a message. The kid's voice cracked. I think they're going to hurt someone, to scare you off. Who? I don't know, I swear, I thought you should know what we've been doing to those old people. It's wrong, I know it's wrong, but Bryce, he's not right. And his dad just enables it. I wanted to tell someone, but I was scared. I'm still scared, but I can't be part of this anymore. Where are you right now, Ryan? I'm at home. My parents don't know anything about this. They think I'm a good kid. God, they'd be so disappointed. Listen to me. You did the right thing calling. That took real courage. It doesn't feel like courage, it feels like being a rat. Being a rat means betraying people who trust you. Bryce Callahan doesn't deserve your loyalty, not after what he's done. Ryan was quiet for a moment. What should I do? Stay away from them, all of them. Whatever happens tomorrow, don't be there. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Good. And Ryan? When this is over, when Bryce and his father face justice, the police might want to talk to you. Will you tell them what you know? Will I get in trouble? I don't know, maybe, but it'll be a hell of a lot less trouble than if you stay silent and they find out later you knew something. Okay, I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. The line went dead. Garrett stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, mind racing. Send a message. Hurt someone. He called Reaper. We need to set up protection for my mother and the others at Ocean View. Tonight. Already on it, Reaper said. Got 3 brothers heading over now. They'll rotate shifts. Nobody gets to those people without going through us. Thanks, brother. Ghost, be careful. This is getting bigger than we thought. I know. Garrett hung up, looked back at Ocean View, lights glowing in windows. People inside, living their lives, unaware of the danger circling them. He thought about Wyatt Torres, 19 years old, dying in the sand, about the promise he'd made and failed to keep. Not this time. This time he wouldn't fail. Friday morning came with fog so thick you could barely see across the street. Garrett was at his garage by 5 a.m. Couldn't sleep. His mind kept running through scenarios, possibilities, threats. He was checking his bike for the 3rd time when the burner phone Knox had given him buzzed. Text from Knox. Captain Rodriguez called a press conference, 10 a.m., said she has major announcement about elder abuse cases. Garrett's heart jumped. Could it be? Had Rodriguez found the evidence? He called her directly. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Brennan, I was going to call you. What's the announcement? We got a break. Security footage from a convenience store near Arden Fair shows Bryce Callahan assaulting an elderly man. Clear face, clear action, enough for an arrest warrant. When? Warrant goes out this afternoon. We'll pick him up tonight. Garrett felt something loosen in his chest. Finally, the system was working. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me. Thank the store owner who finally checked his security system. And Mr. Brennan? Yeah? Stay home tonight. Let us handle this, please. I will. He hung up, stood in the garage feeling like maybe, just maybe, this was going to end without more violence. He called his mother, told her the news. She cried with relief. He called Reaper, called Knox, spread the word. By noon, Garrett almost believed it was over. Then, at 11:15 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number, different from Ryan's call. He answered. Yeah? Heavy breathing, then a voice he recognized. Trent. Hey, old man. You want to see your mother one last time? Garrett's blood went cold. What? We got her. Grabbed her an hour ago. Ocean View Security's a joke, by the way. Trent laughed. Bryce wants to talk to you, face to face. You show up alone, she goes free. You call the cops. Well, the sound of duct tape ripping, a muffled scream in the background. Evelyn. Don't hurt her. Then listen carefully. Arden Fair Mall parking lot, east side, 30 minutes. Come alone. Bring your phone so we can track you. If we see any cops, any of your biker buddies, your mom takes a fall down some stairs. Understand? I understand. Good. See you soon, old man. The line died. Garrett stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then he moved, grabbed his keys, his jacket, checked his knife, 4-inch folding blade, legal to carry, ran to his bike. As he started the engine, he hit speed dial. Reaper answered immediately. Ghost? They took her. They took my mother. What? How? Doesn't matter. Arden Fair parking lot, 30 minutes. They said come alone, but I need backup. Stay back. Way back. Only move if I signal. What's the signal? Garrett thought about his father's brass whistle, still in his jacket pocket. You'll hear it. 3 blasts, loud. We'll be there. Ghost. Be smart. I'm way past smart, brother. This is about keeping promises now. He hung up, kicked the Harley into gear, and rode into the night. The fog was thicker now, visibility maybe 50 feet. The streetlights looked like ghosts floating in the darkness. Garrett's hands were steady on the handlebars. His breathing was calm. He'd been in worse situations. Iraq, Fallujah, places where death was a constant presence. But this was different. This was his mother, the person who'd raised him, who'd sacrificed for him, who'd taught him what it meant to stand up. He thought about Wyatt Torres, about the choice he'd made in the desert. Save the many or save the one. He'd chosen the many, and Wyatt died. Tonight, he was choosing different. Arden Fair Mall appeared through the fog. The parking lot was empty, stores long closed. Garrett rode to the east side, killed his engine. 4 vehicles sat in a loose circle. Mercedes, Audi, pickup, and a van. 4 figures stepped into the headlights. Bryce Callahan, Trent Fisher, Jackson Reed, Darius Page, and behind them 3 more men. Bigger, older, not kids playing games. These were hired muscle. Garrett swung off his bike, started walking. 30 feet away, Bryce smiled. The old man actually came. I'm impressed. Where is she? Safe, for now. Bryce gestured to the van. In there, tied up, gagged, probably terrified. You know how old people get. Garrett's hands curled into fists. Let her go. This is between you and me. Oh, but it's not. Bryce took a step closer. See, you made this personal when you started digging into my life, talking to people, Building a case. My father doesn't appreciate that. Your father's a coward hiding behind his son's cruelty. Bryce's smile disappeared. Careful, old man. Or what? You'll hurt an 81-year-old woman? That's your idea of being tough? My idea of being tough is teaching people lessons they don't forget. Bryce nodded to Darius. Show him. Darius moved fast, faster than Garrett expected. Closed the distance in 3 steps. Threw a punch. Garrett slipped it. Muscle memory. Training older than Darius's entire life. He countered. Short jab to the solar plexus. Darius folded. But there were 6 others. They rushed him. Garrett fought. Dropped one with an elbow to the temple. Caught another's arm. Twisted. Felt something pop. But he was 62. They were young, fresh, multiple attackers. A fist caught him in the ribs. Another in the jaw. He went to one knee. Trent was filming the whole thing, laughing. This is perfect. Old man gets his ass kicked trying to play hero. Garrett tasted blood, heard ringing in his ears. Then he heard something else. Engines. Multiple engines. Growing louder. 12 Harley-Davidsons roared into the parking lot, headlights cutting through the fog like searchlights. They formed a circle around the scene. Riders dismounted, stood silent. Hell's Angels. Sacramento chapter. All of them. Reaper walked forward, stopped 10 feet from Bryce. Evening, boys. Looks like an unfair fight. Bryce's confidence cracked. This is private business. Kidnapping's not private, it's a felony. Reaper looked at Garrett. You all right, brother? Garrett stood, wiped blood from his mouth. Been better. Then another engine, different sound, expensive. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled up. Wade Callahan stepped out, 55, expensive suit, face red with fury. Enough, he stormed toward Bryce. What the hell do you think you're doing? Dad, Shut up. Wade turned to Garrett. This ends now. Let the woman go. All of you leave. We'll pretend this never happened. Too late for that, a new voice said. Captain Rodriguez emerged from an unmarked car, 8 patrol units pulling in behind her. Officers spread out, hands on weapons. Rodriguez looked at Wade. Wade Callahan, you have the right to remain silent. You can't arrest me. I'm a city councilman. You're also an accomplice to kidnapping. Your son called from your phone to set this up. We traced it. We've been listening the whole time. Rodriguez nodded to the officers. Cuff them, all of them. As officers moved in, Garrett ran to the van, pulled open the back door. Evelyn sat there, hands bound, tape over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. He gently removed the tape, untied her hands. Ma, you're safe. I got you. She collapsed against him, sobbing. Over her shoulder, Garrett saw Knox standing near one of the patrol cars, laptop open. The kid gave him a thumbs up. Live stream. He'd broadcast the whole thing. On Knox's screen, the viewer count was climbing. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. The whole city, maybe the whole country was watching. Watching Bryce Callahan and his father get arrested. Watching justice finally happen. Garrett held his mother and felt the weight of 35 years lift from his shoulders. He'd kept his promise. This time, he'd kept his promise. The holding cells at Sacramento County Jail smelled like industrial cleaner and bad decisions. Wade Callahan sat on a metal bench, still wearing his expensive suit, though it was wrinkled now. Ruined, like his career. Through the bars, he could see his son in the cell across the corridor. Bryce wasn't talking, wasn't looking at anyone, just staring at the concrete floor like he couldn't believe this was happening. The live stream had gone viral. 8.7 million views in the first 12 hours. Every news station in California had picked it up. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all showing the same footage. Bryce Callahan admitting to kidnapping. Wade Callahan trying to cover it up. Both of them getting arrested on camera. By morning, Wade's campaign manager had resigned. His donors had pulled their support. The city council had called an emergency session to demand his resignation. It was over. All of it. Over. And it was all because of one old man on a motorcycle who wouldn't back down. 3 blocks away, at Mercy General Hospital, Garrett sat in the emergency room waiting area while doctors checked over his mother. Reaper sat beside him. Knox was outside, fielding calls from reporters who somehow already had Garrett's number. "You did good, Ghost," Reaper said quietly. Garrett touched his ribs. They'd taken a beating. Nothing broken, but he'd be sore for weeks. "Didn't do it alone." "Still, you started this. You stood up when nobody else would." The examination room door opened. A doctor emerged, clipboard in hand. Young, maybe 30. She looked tired. "Mr. Brennan, your mother's fine. Dehydrated, elevated blood pressure from stress, some bruising on her wrist from the restraints. But overall, she's remarkably healthy for 81. Can I see her?" "Of course. Room 4. Evelyn sat on the examination table, hospital gown over her clothes, looking small and fragile in a way that made Garrett's chest hurt. But when she saw him, she smiled. "They're saying I need to stay overnight for observation. Can you believe that? I'm fine." "Ma, you were kidnapped and held hostage. You're staying overnight." She sighed, but didn't argue. That's how Garrett knew she was more shaken than she wanted to admit. He sat in the chair beside the bed, took her hand. "I'm sorry, this is my fault. I pushed too hard, and they came after you because of me. Garrett Michael Brennan." She used his full name. Never a good sign. "Don't you dare apologize for doing what was right. Those boys needed to be stopped, and you stopped them. Your father would be proud. Dad would say I was reckless." "Your father was reckless his whole life. How do you think he ended up with me?" She smiled, squeezed his hand. "You kept your promise, son. To him, to me, to everyone who needed someone to stand up." Garrett felt something break loose in his chest. Something he'd been carrying since Iraq. Since Wyatt. Since the day he'd chosen to save 8 men and let 1 die. "I couldn't save Wyatt," he said quietly, "but I saved you." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, baby. You've been carrying that for 35 years, haven't you?" He nodded. "Listen to me." She cupped his face with both hands, the way she used to when he was a boy. "You can't save everyone. Nobody can. But you can save the people in front of you, the ones who need you right now. That's what you did tonight, and that's enough. It's always been enough." Garrett closed his eyes, let himself believe it. Maybe it was enough. Maybe he was enough. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Garrett woke up in his garage apartment. He'd crashed there instead of going home, too tired to ride, to his phone ringing nonstop. News outlets, podcasts, even a producer from 60 Minutes. He ignored them all. Instead, he called Captain Rodriguez. "Mr. Brennan, how are you feeling?" "Like I got jumped by 7 guys half my age. But I'll live." "What's the status?" "Bryce Callahan, Trent Fisher, Jackson Reed, and Darius Page are all being charged with kidnapping, assault, conspiracy, and elder abuse. The 3 men they hired are facing the same, and Wade Callahan is being charged as an accessory after the fact, plus obstruction of justice and witness intimidation. Bail? Denied for all of them. Judge saw the live stream, wasn't in a forgiving mood. Good. There's more. We got a call this morning from a young woman, Ashley Morrison. She wants to give a statement about Bryce Callahan, about what he did to her." Garrett smiled. "She's brave. She said you gave her the courage. Said if a 62-year-old man could stand up to the Callahans, she could too." Rodriguez paused. "You started something, Mr. Brennan. A lot of people are coming forward now. Victims who were too scared before. We're looking at a pattern of abuse going back 3 years. Will it stick? The charges? With the video evidence? With multiple witnesses? Yeah, it'll stick. Wade Callahan's political career is over, and his son is looking at serious prison time. How much? With all the charges? 10 to 15 years, maybe more. Garrett let that sink in. 10 to 15 years. Bryce would be almost 40 when he got out, middle-aged, no longer the young man who thought he was untouchable. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. You did what we couldn't. You gave these people hope. He hung up, sat in the quiet garage, listened to the old building settle. Then he got up and went to work. 3 weeks later, Ocean View Senior Living held a community meeting. The recreation room was packed. Every resident, staff members, family members, and a half-dozen reporters who'd somehow gotten permission to attend. Vernon Hayes stood at the front of the room, microphone in hand. He'd gotten new dentures. Looked almost like his old self. Thank you all for coming. I know we've had a difficult few weeks, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about what's happened and what we're going to do next. He gestured to Evelyn, sitting in the front row. Mrs. Brennan has been organizing something, a support group for seniors who've experienced violence or abuse. We're calling it the Sacramento Elder Safety Coalition. And we're not just here to support each other, we're here to make sure this never happens again. Evelyn stood, moved to the microphone with her cane. 3 weeks ago, I was afraid. We all were. Afraid to go to the mall. Afraid to go outside. Afraid of children who should have known better. Her voice was steady, strong. But one person refused to let that fear win. My son. And because he stood up, all of you found the courage to stand up too. She looked around the room. This coalition isn't about revenge. It's about prevention. We're working with the City Council to install better security cameras in public spaces. We're partnering with local police to create a rapid response system for elder abuse calls. And we're going to schools to teach young people about respect and empathy. Ida Murphy stood, 76 years old, wearing the watch her late husband had given her, the one she'd recovered after Bryce's arrest. We're also filing a class action lawsuit against Wade Callahan and his son for emotional distress, for medical expenses, for the fear they caused. And every penny we win is going into a fund to help other seniors who've been victimized. The room erupted in applause. Gene Sullivan spoke up. We're not victims anymore. We're advocates, and we're not going away. Garrett sat in the back, watching, listening, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. These people, these survivors, had turned their pain into purpose, had taken the worst moment of their lives and used it to create something better. That was strength, real strength. After the meeting, reporters cornered Garrett outside. Mr. Brennan, how does it feel to be called a hero? I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who kept a promise. What message do you have for other people facing similar situations? Garrett thought about that, about Wyatt Torres, about his father, about every hard choice he'd ever made. Don't wait for someone else to do what's right. Don't assume the system will protect you. Stand up, fight back, and find people who'll stand with you, because you're not as alone as you think. What's next for you? Next? Garrett looked back at Ocean View, at his mother talking with Vernon and Ida and Jean, at the community they'd built from ashes. Next, I keep my promise, every day, for as long as I can. 2 months after the arrests, the Sacramento City Council held a special session. They passed 3 new ordinances: enhanced penalties for crimes against seniors, mandatory security cameras in shopping centers, and funding for community safety programs. They also issued a formal apology to the victims of Bryce Callahan's attacks. Wade Callahan's council seat was filled by emergency election. His campaign headquarters was turned into a community center for seniors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Garrett attended the session, sat in the back, watched democracy do what it was supposed to do, respond to its people. Afterward, Captain Rodriguez, now chief of police, promoted after the former chief resigned in disgrace, pulled him aside. The department wants to give you a commendation for civilian bravery. I don't need a commendation. I know, but we need to give it. Let us do something right. Garrett nodded. All right, but I want something in return. Name it. The Hells Angels Sacramento chapter wants to start a volunteer program. We patrol areas near senior facilities, not looking for trouble, just being visible, making people think twice. Rodriguez studied him. You're talking about a partnership between the police and a motorcycle club. I'm talking about a partnership between people who care about this community. The patch on my back doesn't change that. She was quiet for a moment, then extended her hand. All right, let's try it. 6-month trial. You keep your people in line, we'll support the program. They shook. You're changing things, Mr. Brennan. We're changing things, Chief, all of us. 6 months later, Garrett stood in the parking lot of Arden Fair Mall, the same parking lot where he'd faced down Bryce Callahan, where his mother had been held hostage, where everything had come to a head. But today, it looked completely different. Banners hung from light poles. Safe Seniors Day, a community celebration. Booths lined the perimeter. Information about elder safety, free blood pressure screenings, legal aid services, and in the center, a small stage where city officials were giving speeches. Hundreds of people milled around, families, seniors, young people volunteering. It had become an annual event. The first one was 6 months ago. This was the second. Each time, it got bigger. Garrett walked through the crowd, Evelyn beside him in her wheelchair. She didn't need it today, could have used her cane, but she wanted to be visible. Wanted people to see that you could survive trauma and still show up. Vernon and Ida ran a booth about the Elder Safety Coalition. Gene was giving a talk on a small stage about his experience in Korea and how community service had saved his life after the war. Knox had set up a tech help station, teaching seniors how to use smartphones and social media safely. Reaper and the Hells Angels were running a motorcycle safety demonstration, showing kids how to respect the road. It was beautiful, messy, imperfect, real. Garrett, he turned. A young woman was running toward him. 18, maybe 19, blonde hair, nervous smile. She stopped in front of him, breathing hard. Mr. Brennan? I'm Emma. Emma Morrison, Ashley's daughter. Garrett blinked. He hadn't known Ashley had a daughter. My mom wanted me to give you this. Emma held out a small box. She couldn't come today. She's still working through things. But she wanted you to have this. Garrett opened the box. Inside was a simple brass compass. Old, well-worn. It belonged to my grandfather, Emma said. Mom's dad. He gave it to her before he died. Said it was to help her find her way when she felt lost. She wants you to have it because you helped her find her way. Garrett held the compass, felt the weight of it, the history. Thank you. Tell your mother, tell her she's braver than she knows. Emma smiled. She says the same thing about you. As Emma walked away, Evelyn looked up at Garrett. That was kind of her. Yeah. Garrett closed the box, slipped it into his jacket pocket, right next to his father's brass whistle. 2 talismans, 2 promises kept. They continued through the crowd, stopped at various booths, talked to people, listened to stories. At one point, a young man approached, early 20s, nervous, hands shaking. Mr. Brennan, can I talk to you for a second? Garrett recognized the voice, the kid who'd called to warn him about Wade Callahan's plan. You're the one who called me, before they took my mother. The kid nodded. My name's Ryan. I was there that night, at the parking lot. I didn't help kidnap your mom, but I knew what they were planning, and I didn't stop it. I just called you and thought that was enough. You gave me a warning. That took courage. No, courage would have been stopping them. Courage would have been calling the police. Ryan looked at the ground. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Garrett studied him, saw genuine remorse, genuine pain. You know what takes more courage than doing the right thing once? Garrett said. Doing the right thing every day after you've done wrong. You can't change the past, but you can change what you do next. Ryan looked up. How? Help people. Volunteer. Speak out when you see injustice. Be the person you wish you'd been that night. Garrett gestured to the event around them. This whole thing exists because people chose to be better. You can too. Ryan nodded, wiped his eyes. Thank you, I'll try. As he walked away, Evelyn squeezed Garrett's hand. You're good at this, giving people hope. Just passing on what you and Dad taught me. They reached the main stage just as Chief Rodriguez was finishing her speech. And finally, I want to recognize someone who embodies what community protection really means. Not through power or position, but through simple human decency. Garrett Brennan, would you come up here, please? Garrett froze. He hated this, hated attention, hated being put on display. But Evelyn pushed his wheelchair forward. Go on. Let them thank you. He walked to the stage. Rodriguez handed him a plaque. On behalf of the Sacramento Police Department and the City Council, we present you with the Citizen Commendation for Valor and Community Service. Applause filled the parking lot. Rodriguez leaned in. You're supposed to say something. Garrett looked out at the crowd, saw Vernon and Ida and Jean, saw Knox and Reaper and the other angels, saw families and seniors and young people, saw hope. He cleared his throat, spoke into the microphone. I'm not good at speeches, never have been, so I'll keep this short. He held up the plaque. This doesn't belong to me. It belongs to every person who stood up when it was hard. To my mother, who refused to stay silent. To Vernon Hayes and Ida Murphy and Jean Sullivan and all the others who shared their stories. To Captain Rodriguez, Chief Rodriguez, who chose justice over politics. To the Hells Angels Sacramento chapter, who showed that brotherhood means protecting your community. He paused. My father once told me that a man is only as good as his word. For a long time, I didn't understand what that meant. I thought it was about keeping promises to other people. But it's bigger than that. It's about keeping promises to yourself. About deciding who you want to be and then being that person, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He looked at his mother. I promised I'd protect people who couldn't protect themselves. I promised I'd stand up for what's right. And I promised I'd never forget that every person deserves dignity and respect, no matter how old they are or how vulnerable they seem. He set the plaque down. I'm keeping those promises, and I hope all of you will too, because that's how we build the kind of community we want to live in. Not by waiting for heroes, but by being decent human beings every single day. The applause was louder this time, longer. Garrett stepped off the stage back to his mother. That was perfect, she said, tears in her eyes. Learn from the best. As the afternoon wore on, Garrett found himself standing at the edge of the parking lot, looking out over the event. 2 years ago, this place had been a battlefield, a place of fear and violence. Now it was a place of healing. That's what community meant, taking broken things and making them whole again. Not erasing the past, but transforming it. He felt a presence beside him, looked over. Ida Murphy stood there, leaning on her cane. Beautiful, isn't it? She said. Yeah, it is. My granddaughter came today. She's 18, just graduated high school. Ida smiled. She wants to become a social worker. Says she wants to help people the way you helped me. I didn't do much. You gave me back my husband's watch. You gave me back my dignity. You gave me back my hope. Ida turned to face him fully. That's not much, Mr. Brennan. That's everything. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small velvet bag. I want you to have this. Garrett opened the bag. Inside was a watch. The watch. George Murphy's watch. Vintage. Beautiful. Engraved on the back, to George, my love eternal. Ida, 1968. I can't take this. You can, and you will. Ida's voice was firm. George would have wanted you to have it. He was a good man, believed in doing right by people. You remind me of him. Ida, please, let me give you this. Let me say thank you in a way that matters. Garrett looked at the watch, at the engraving, at 53 years of love captured in a few words. On one condition, he said, I wear it, but it's still yours, and when I die, it goes back to your family. Ida smiled. Deal. She helped him put it on. It fit perfectly. As she walked away, Garrett looked at his wrist, at the watch that had survived theft and recovery in time itself, a symbol of endurance, of love, of the things we carry forward. The sun was setting now, golden light painting the Sacramento sky in shades of amber and rose. People started packing up, saying goodbyes, making plans for next year's event. Garrett pushed his mother's wheelchair toward his truck. He'd driven today instead of riding, wanted to be able to take Evelyn home comfortably. You know what I think? Evelyn said. What's that, Ma? I think your father was right. A man is only as good as his word. And you, Garrett Michael Brennan, are a very good man. He kissed the top of her head. I had a good teacher. At home that night, Garrett sat in his garage. The Harley gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Tomorrow he'd ride again, feel the wind, the freedom, the simple joy of motion. But tonight he opened the small steel box on his workbench. Inside, his bronze star, the photo of Wyatt Torres, his father's letter. And now, 3 new additions. Ashley's compass, the commendation plaque from the city, and a photo someone had taken today. Garrett standing with Evelyn, Vernon, Ida, Jean, and the whole Elder Safety Coalition, all of them smiling. He read his father's letter one more time. A man is only as good as his word. The law tells us what we can do. Honor tells us what we must do. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not. I trust you'll know the difference when it matters. Garrett folded the letter, put it back in the box. He'd known the difference, had made the hard choice, had kept his word. And in keeping his word, he'd found something he'd been searching for since Iraq. Redemption. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that acknowledges it, honors it, and builds something better from the ashes. Wyatt Torres would never come home. That was a truth Garrett would carry forever. But Vernon and Ida and Jean and Evelyn had found safety, had found dignity, had found hope. That was enough. That had to be enough. Garrett closed the box, turned off the lights, locked the garage. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new people who needed help, new promises to keep. But tonight he would rest, because a man who keeps his word deserves that much. As he walked to his apartment, Garrett looked up at the stars. Clear sky, no fog tonight, just endless darkness pierced by points of light that had been burning for millions of years. Constant, reliable, eternal, like promises kept, like honor maintained, like the legacy of a good man passed from father to son, generation to generation, an unbroken chain of decency in a world that often forgot what decency meant. Garrett Brennan was 64 years old now, gray hair, weathered face, scars from a lifetime of standing up. But his hands were steady, his word was good, and his promises were kept. That was enough. That would always be enough.